I thought I knew what I was getting myself into and I decided to attend medical university, but little did I know that my first semester would go on to prove a slight bit of ignorance on my part. And that goes without saying that I obviously underestimated the additional challenges that would come with choosing to study abroad. I was scammed right off the bat, which was a great way to start. You see, I traveled during the COVID pandemic with the knowledge that I would need to go straight into quarantine after arrival. So there was my little innocent past self, walking through the doors of Budapest airport and being met by a guy holding a sign with my name on it. I proceed to get in his taxi and he drives me all the way to my dormitory and quarantine location in Pécs, which worked out to about a 3-hour drive. I later found out that I was able to make use of airport shuttles called Travel for You, which I did not know was an option at the time. Hence why my travel agent booked the form of transport which I ended up going with. It was 255 euros. The airport shuttle would have cost me 40. I had very little time to feel sorry for myself though, as I was immediately thrown into an abyss of uncertainty and confusion. I was sitting in quarantine, looking at the daunting list of stuff that I would need to do once I got out, such as opening a bank account, getting my student card, as well as my resident card from the immigration office. And that turned out to be a very long, complicated, tedious process. But maybe that's a story for another time. So, medical school. First thing that comes to mind is medical chemistry lab point mental breakdown. One of my friends can testify, and I'm sure is still scarred to this day from the small outbursts that I had with regards to those lab points. And yeah, let's just say I was very frustrated, to put it lightly. I personally feel that this medical university just throws you in the deep end and doesn't give you much information. You have to pretty much fend for yourself and try and work it all out. And I don't believe they put enough emphasis on the importance of these medical chemistry lab points at the beginning of the semester. Basically, every week when we have a medical chemistry lab, we would be given 2 questions at the beginning of the lab, one being a known question and one being an unknown question. So that would work out to 14 questions in total by the end of the semester. And you had to have a total of 7 points gathered from those 14 to qualify for the final exam. And not qualifying for that one exam would mean that you would have a whole additional year on your medical degree because you could only repeat medical chemistry in the following fall semester the next year. Now, this is partly my fault because I didn't take the first few weeks too seriously, but as I said, I was not aware of the importance of these points. So when we fast forward to around 5th week of semester, mental breakdown. I know of many people and friends as well who unfortunately were not able to get the total points they needed, and it's definitely something that they hold against this university, and I can kind of understand why. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to get just over the line at the end, but it was a very stressful time for sure. These medical chemistry labs were also one of the few classes that we had in person. The majority of our classes were online, and I was definitely not sleeping in those classes. Anyway, moving on. This also meant that our biology semester tests were in an online format on a platform called Socrative. And let's just say that the questions seemed more like Greek than the name Socrative. I was lost. I think I failed every single semester test. In fact, I did. I think they made them ridiculously hard just because it was online and they thought people were going to cheat. So they just decided to make a completely open book and then fetched questions from, I don't know, Albert Einstein himself reincarnated. This meant that I wasn't going to get any exemption on specific topics in the final oral exam, and I was going to have the maximum amount of topics drawn to try and prove that I knew the work. And this was a massive volume of work. I think it was probably around 240 pages that we had to learn for that final exam. And as I've also mentioned in quite a few of my old videos, learning for an oral exam is very challenging because you literally get 3 topics and those 3 topics maybe cover 5 of those 240 pages, and that's all they use to determine how much you know. So it was probably the hardest exam I had in that semester, and again, I was very lucky and I managed to get through it. The last 2 modules I just want to briefly mention was the biometrics and biophysics modules, and these were basically the modules that we don't want to do but kind of have to do, and I maybe shouldn't be saying that, but it's true. Biometrics was statistical analysis and other stuff, but I don't even remember, which is not a good sign. And then biophysics was physics in too much depth for a medical student, in my opinion. and I feel like it was more catered towards engineering students. So again, not something that I was really enjoying learning. In that biophysics department, we were learning about the fine intricacies of how medical equipment actually functions, and we had to know all kinds of different things about lasers and particles and all sorts of other physics stuff that has very, very quickly escaped my memory. So you have all the stress regarding your studies, and then you mix all of this in with the progressively stricter COVID regulations that were coming about as a result of an increase in positive cases. And you get, well, I'll let you imagine. It was a pity because the semester actually started quite well. We had, as I've mentioned in, again, previous videos, we had a very good camaraderie in the dormitory with a lot of Erasmus kids, specifically from Spain for some reason in that semester. And there was a very good party kind of vibe. And we went out quite a few nights in the first few weeks to a bar near me now called Napoli, and also a few clubs here and there. And I feel like it was a decent student environment all the way up until about Halloween, from what I can remember. And that's when the COVID restrictions started getting really rough, such as I think it was an 8 p.m. curfew, and basically everything was closed. So we tried to make the best of the situation, and we had a few parties in the dorm, and we hung out a bit with each other, but there wasn't really much to do. I was really appreciative and grateful, though, that I had made such good friends in the dormitory. And we were able to do a really nice thing for Christmas, for example, where we were all kind of stuck in the dormitory, not able to go home. And we just decided that all of us would band together, all of us from different countries, and we'd all cook a traditional dish, and we'd have a massive feast where we'd put all of the traditional dishes on a table, have some wine, and just chat and try and get as festive as we could. And we actually came out of that with pretty good memories. Okay, so I think this whole video has kind of been rounded and is pointing towards the direction which is mental well-being or mental health, and that's kind of the end part or end segment of this video. It's just kind of discussing the effects that I think it had on me mentally, and I think it was the beginning point of a pretty bad lull in my life, which I think was more so in the second semester, and I might discuss that in a separate video. But for now, in the first semester, I think this is the starting point, and I definitely started getting into a small kind of rut. Granted, I wasn't helping myself because I wasn't eating the best. In fact, I actually got saved because someone in the dorm, a friend of mine from Croatia, used to love cooking, so I used to be kind of stingy, and I would go over and try and sweet talk her and get some of the food. But to be fair, I mean, she was very nice and we were close friends. But yeah, she saved me. If it weren't for her, I would have starved. But no, I try to cook a few meals, the stereotypical student omelets and eggs and whatever else. But in general, I don't think I ate very well. And I also wasn't gymming. So I think all in all, I let my health go a little bit. But I like to make excuses at the same time that I was obviously in a different country. I was trying to organize all of those documents and stuff that I mentioned for the immigration office and the bank, and then trying to do the lab points and everything else. So all in all, to summarize that semester, I would probably say it was like being thrown into a washing machine at full pelt. But I would also say it was because COVID was like deodorant on a fire. I came out of it with some wounds that needed mending, and that I'm kind of still working on today, but I definitely grew as a person, and the entire journey was definitely a rewarding one. So would I do it all again? Definitely not. I'm very happy I'm in third year. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers.